Hello everyone, welcome to another motovlog on my channel. My name is Fjr1300, and today's motovlog topic, what I like to talk about is, as usual on my channel, most of the time is motorcycle topic related. The topic that I would like to talk about today is something that I've never experienced or had to service on a bike, and I'd like to get everybody's input and on this matter. So I'll give you a backstory before I start. Okay, so my bike currently has 12,300 miles. It's a 2016 Yamaha Fjr1300, the electric suspension model ES. And what happened was, about 3 weeks ago, I was on my way to a fairly local, about 30 minutes away, bike night over 4th of July weekend. Rode there to bike night, whatever, ate some dinner, listened to a live band. There a couple hours. Once I got there, had a good time. So all is well. I ride back that night. All is well with the bike, and I go to do some maintenance item on the bike that next morning about 10 o'clock and to start on it. And I go back around the back side of the bike in the garage and go get another tool out of the toolbox. And I happened to notice a very wide staple, looked like a Romex staple in the back of the tire, about a ½ inch off center of the tread in the back tire to the right. And these are Michelin Pilot Road 5s that GT, the one for the heavier sport touring or heavier bikes model that were on it. They weren't new, but they definitely had at least probably 3,000-4,000 miles life left on them. Nowhere near the wear bar. Center was not even starting to flat spot or anything like that. So I hate trying to pull on this road sometimes. Sorry guys. So what happens is we're like, well, I'm not going to chance. My life is not worth saving a few $100s and trying to plug it. So I bite the bullet and go up to my local motorcycle shop and get a new rear tire put on. I was going to put a front put on that same day, but unfortunately they only had a rear same tire that was on it, Michelin Pilot Road 5 GT. They only had a rear and they had to order the front. So I put the rear on, bike feels good, whatever. Put a few 100 miles on it between the time they can order the tire, because over 4th of July week after that they are closed for the holiday. So a little over a week goes by. I put a front tire on. I think all is well. I go to leave the bike shop, which I live just a few miles from, and notice the bike just like shaking real pretty bad, bouncing, not wanting to hold the line in the road, or not hold the line, but just stay, in one spot in the lane, so to speak, on a fairly straight road. So I'm like, I get home, on the way home, I'm like, it's probably just air pressure's off, no big deal. So I get home, air pressure is about 5 or 6 pounds over, and I'm like, well, that would definitely make the front end of the bike feel stiffer and ride stiffer, so maybe it's just that. So I fixed that. Think all is well. Bike seems to be better, but not great. Ride it, I don't know, maybe 100, 150 miles, and bike's not getting better. In fact, it's way worse, or was, I should say, interstate speeds, 60 to 70 miles an hour. The bike is literally shaking so bad that it's making my feet numb in regular just riding shoes, not riding boots that I have, and literally like shaking so bad that it doesn't want to stay in the interstate within a 6-inch window to the right or left. It's all I can do to hold it at 60, 65. I'm like, something's not right with this. This bike's always been smooth. Maybe the front wheel's out of balance. So right after I come to the conclusion that something's not right, when I rode the bike back home that day from the interstate, not a very far jaunt interstate, maybe 15 or 20 miles, not a big deal. So I look to make sure the front wheel is one, that the bead is seated all the way on the tire, and looks like to me what I can tell it is, and that the front tire and wheel has been balanced, which it's got balance weights on it. So I'm like, okay, yeah, something's not right. So I ride it to the local bike shop, and I'm thinking maybe the front wheel's out of balance or something. Well, the owner of it asked me if I rode the bike there, and I said yes. So he gets on the bike, rides it up the road, and he asked me when the shaking started. And I said about 45 or 50, but gets worse the faster you go. He goes, okay. So he takes off the road. He's gone 5 minutes. He comes back, and he says, well, I hate to say this, but due to you just put a new front tire on, what usually happens when you do that, if you have bad steering stem bearings, is it brings out the fact that the bearings are bad. And I'm like, okay. So the guy gives me a favor, since I did buy both tires there and buy lots of little odds and ends stuff there. So he gives me a break. Says, well, you're a good customer, you hear a lot. I'm going to cut you a break. Bearings only about $30, not a big deal, but the labor, my mechanic book calls for a 6-hour job at whatever their labor rate is. I don't really know exactly off the top of my head. But he says, I'll only charge you for 3.5 hours of labor. So he totals it up, $300 plus tax. Not a huge deal, but keep in mind, I just spent several $100s on a rear and several $100s on the front. Both tires altogether at a shop, not a dealer, are like $550 mounted, balanced. I took the whole bike to them, everything's well. I did get a price from the local Yamaha dealer, and they wanted a little over $600 before tax. So about a $75 in savings there. So versus going to dealer. So whatever. So my thing is this bike to me now, and keep in mind, the owner told me, he said, I've been a mechanic for 30 plus odd years. I recommend, instead of putting an open face bearing in there, some of you motorcycle more mechanic savvy more viewers than me, he says, well, instead of putting an open face bearing in there, I suggest a closed face. It's a better bearing support. It should last longer this time around with the steering head bearings. And I said, okay, I'll take your word for it, whatever. So I ordered the bearings, and got me in and out once I dropped the bike off. Just 2 or 3 days, he got it done, and they were swamped there, of course, this time of year, and everybody trying to spend all their stimulus check money, at least the first one anyway. No big deal. I picked the bike up, and the owner rides it, and he warned me, he said, the bike's going to feel a lot different right now. The steering input is going to be way more sensitive than what it was, because the new bearings have to break in, and that overall bearing design is just, maybe it's more supportive or something. I don't know. But he just said, give it, 25, maybe 50 miles, maybe even 75 at the most, and it won't be twitchy, and it'll feel pretty close to what it was normally before you put tires on. As having somewhat older tires, of course, you're not going to have as much grip, and the bike's not going to lean as much. So he said it won't quite be like that, but it'll be close once the bearings break in. Now, one thing I have done, and this is the first time really I've really rode it very much other than just to take it home from getting it fixed. Since my bike's the ES model, I made sure I had it on the preload on one rider, and I put it on soft and -3, which is the softest setting there is. And that seemed to really help a lot as far as how twitchy it is. And I figured I'd get it on one of my favorite back road routes and help lean the bike side to side. Maybe that'll help it break in a little faster. And to me, it seemed like about 50 miles an hour and above, it was just really sensitive. I guess as the speed increases, steering input becomes naturally, I've been riding 5 years now, as the speed increases, steering input, counter steering at all, makes those inputs greater the faster you go, because gyroscopic effect or whatever, gyroscope, I'm trying to say, can't really think of the exact word, but that effect greater the faster you go. So, I figured, well, I'll take it on one of my normal little back road routes. It's a 20-mile loop or something like that. It's got lots of back and forth curves in it, and maybe that'll help it break in faster. And by putting on the softest setting, it did make it much less twitchy, to me anyway. Seems so. And yes, before you ask, I do have both front and rear tire pressures set by the owner's manual, or on this bike it actually has a sticker on the right side of the swing arm. Yamaha recommends 36 in the front cold and 42 in the rear cold. I set both of them about 3 pounds under that with the bike dead cold in the garage before I rode it today at all. So yeah, pressures are good. It just it's gonna take some. It's gonna really take it used to. Even doing 40 miles an hour, it's really twitchy to me compared to what I'm used to. I've ridden probably, I don't know, 15 different kind of bikes, from sport bikes like an R1, standards like an SD6, of course, that I put thousands of miles on, BMWs, like 4 different one of those, and gold wings and stuff like that. So I'm not, a beginner rider, and I know what most bikes feel like. And right now, this just doesn't feel like the bike that I bought. It feels good, and it tracks straight, and it really likes to lean in, and there's no vibration, nothing like that. I think the guys did a really good job. But it's just so hard to get used to this. I'm anxious to hear everybody's comments about, have they ever used different kind of OEM bearing versus the kind they put on mine, and advantages and disadvantages of both. Obviously, the OEM is going to feel more like it was, but I don't know if the OEM, it probably would have took some time to broken into, I'm assuming. I don't know. But I'd love to hear everybody's reactions on what they think and their input. So, guys, sorry for the long-winded motovlog, but it's just so strange to me. I figured I'd share some of my experiences with you, and maybe you can help me through my experience a little bit. So, on that, guys, thanks for watching. Ride safe. Have fun. Don't forget to leave a comment down below. Subscribe if you've not already done to, and smash that bell. And we will see you on the next motovlog. See ya.